I should say all protocols observed, as I will not know everybody that's in the room. But I'm supposed to talk about the accounting profession in the context of nation building, but I will then touch also on the leadership role we've got to play and the difficult task at hand when you have to lead. I've just heard Professor Mervyn King just referring to issues of leadership. The way I think about leadership is that it is that which we need when logic is not the answer. If any situation you're facing can be responded to and addressed adequately, applying logic, then probably that's not a leadership issue. But the problems that we face as a country are problems that require leadership, because they've been with us for quite some time and they are recurring. The problems that we are facing as a profession are problems that require leadership. I wrote a little piece in the Accountancy SA of this past month about leadership, and the title is "We Can All Lead Change." And the reason for that was to challenge all of our members, 46,000 of them, that to restore the profession to its former glory will not take the CEO, will not take the board, will not take the chairman of the board, but will take the members of SAICA when they want the profession to go back to its former glory. And I'll talk about how they can do that. Now, this profession built its reputation on the back of 5 principles. To act honestly at all times, to always be objective and not use any information that you come across in the context of your activities for personal gain or for anything other than that which your client requires you to do. To always ensure that you are possessing all of the necessary skills and competence to execute the functions that you're supposed to execute, and apply yourself diligently to the task at hand. To always ensure that you keep information that you obtain in your assignments confidentially, and also to ensure that you conduct yourself in a professional manner and respect all the laws. These principles are responsible for making this profession the great profession that it has been. A lot of civilization and a lot of things that we experience today were influenced in part by this profession. I see some of you are taking notes. The very act of writing would not have arisen had it not been for the need to keep record, but also to account for that which has happened. So this profession has been responsible for civilization, yet in the past few years, we've somehow lost that edge. A number of factors have led to this, and I'm not going to go into all of the details. I'm just going to highlight one key thing that I'm observing. That throughout the history of the accountancy profession, we have experienced economic crisis, we have experienced company failures, and all of those things. All of them arising in part because the information was inconsistent, because the information wasn't clear, but in a very, very big part because the conduct of the players in that economic activity was not up to scratch. The issue of ethics was not recognized. Our responses to that have largely been about improving the standards, improving the frameworks that we operate with, and less about dealing with the conduct.
You can sit on the chair.
So as a profession, we've got to ask ourselves a question around the relevance of our responses thus far and their adequacy. As SAICA, we have been criticized for not acting quick enough on some of the misdemeanors that some of our members have committed in the past few years. We have reviewed some of our processes. We're looking into the ways in which we can speed up these, and in the next few months, obviously, you will be seeing some of the outcomes of that. In the past few months, there has been some outcomes. Saying that, I also need to underline this issue, that out of the 46,000 members that we have, the overwhelming majority of our members are honest individuals, are people that uphold these 5 principles. So then, if they do uphold these principles, what else can they do? In the last 2 years, a document called Non-Compliance with Laws and Regulation came into being. And it seeks to help practitioners to deal with ethical dilemmas that they face when they undertake their assignments. But there's 2 things that we have to note in relation to this document. The first one is not so pleasing to the profession, because the very reason why this document has been put together is because when we found ourselves in situations where we needed to act and say something about what we are experiencing, what we are picking up in the assignments that we do, we didn't do so, or we didn't do so diligently enough. So, in a way, to have the NOCLA document is somewhat of an indictment to the profession. But it is helping the profession to respond to these things. And the reason why, the second point that we have to note around this is that often when we talk about organizations and how organizations can make change, how we can have a society that is progressive, we talk about values that the society embraces. Now, the notion of values is about that which is important to us, that which we spend most of our time devoting ourselves to. At times, values conflict. At times, values conflict. And it is in those defining moments that an act of leadership would arise. Without asking people to be less than honest, picture a scenario in which, and when they talk about ethics, they make this example that if you were sitting in a room and there are some Jews in the room, and some Nazi comes in carrying his guns and asking if there are any Jews in the audience, what would you say? Would you be honest and say there are and point them out? Obviously not. But by doing that, you are not necessarily undermining the value of honesty, but at that moment, at that defining moment, there's a clash of values, and the most important issue for you is the preservation of life. So if we're going to talk about leadership and all of these issues, we're going to have to face the reality that there will be times when we are challenged at the very core of our being, at the things that we hold very dear to ourselves, and we do need to respond, and respond in a way that takes society to another level. Now, those are the things we've got to do as a profession. There's 46,000 members. They pick up some of these things happening in the organizations where they work. We need to find a mechanism of ensuring that that information filters through to a structure that's got to deal with it. In our case, we can discipline them as SAICA. If they are registered auditors, they can be reported to ERPA so that they can be disciplined there. That is one piece we can do as a profession to contribute to the positive developments in our society. But this conference is also about nation building. And as SAICA, we believe that we have to be relevant to the South African society. And there are specific things that we do in order to ensure that we are relevant to the South African society. Of course, one of them is the fact that I don't have enough sleep because we have to work with issues at ESCOM. But I will not talk about that. We have, over the years, you will see outside here there are Tutuga, people with the Tutuga t-shirts. This initiative we started almost 20 years ago. Next year is going to be 20 years since the initiative started. It's an initiative to support students from previously disadvantaged communities to get funding to go to varsity, but at the same time ensure they've got accommodation, and we also ensure that we track their performance and we don't end there. There will always be difficult times that a student faces, and we ensure that when they have difficulties, when they are sick, when they have lost somebody important in the family, or any other psychological matter that will affect them in their performance, we are there with them to support them. We provide that support. This has been a very successful project over the years. A few years ago, there was an uprising from students about fees must fall. As SAICA, we then came together again, collaborating with other stakeholders, in this instance, First Rand and the banking sector. And we said, how do we address the question of the missing middle? And we took a model, and we are applying it to ensure that this country delivers on producing all of the skills that are critical for our economy that we would otherwise not have. And this initiative is called ikusasa Student Financial Aid Program, ISFAP. It covers all of the critical skills, medicine, engineering, and so on. And it's an initiative that's driven by this profession together with other stakeholders. And we do this because we believe that if we can build skills for this country, we will create an opportunity for this country to grow the economy and create more opportunities for everybody. We don't stop there. We work with government on a number of other projects. We work with TVET colleges. We work with the school governing boards. We work with community colleges. We take unemployed graduates, give them an opportunity to do work that's meaningful to help these institutions so that they can be managed effectively and they can be effective in delivering on their mandate. And we also do that work linking up to small and medium practices so that these students can be supervised by people with experience. And all of these things are ways in which we're contributing to this country to make this country work. We work with the Department of Health on a number of projects. And we do these things because we believe in this country. We believe that our members, with all of the skills that they have acquired over the years, need to be relevant and make a contribution. Now, the question is, what are the other professions doing? And I'm not saying they're doing nothing. We need to get more and more of ourselves sitting in this room to figure out ways in which we can make something positive, even if you're helping just one person. We need to all build that culture. Because when we build that culture, we're going to create opportunities for people. We're going to reduce the chances of all of the negative things that are happening. Of course, for all of these things to happen, we require people to stick their necks out. We require people to believe that they can make a change and raise their hands when the call is made. And the current president says, Tumamina, and all of us have got to raise our hand and says we have to be sent to drive initiatives that make this country positive. But at the same time, as a profession, we've got to make sure that we create an environment in which investment can come so that all of these things can work together in concert. And we will do that if we give confidence to those that have got excess capital to invest in our economy, because we hold each other accountable to those important principles. Thank you very much.
Down, any questions for him? Any questions for Freeman Nomvalo? Babkimi? Yeah, it's on.
Thanks very much, Freeman. Just one thing that I just wanted you to elaborate on. You know, ever since we have been in trouble as a profession, we've often said that the overwhelming majority of us are not the bad apples. But the minority, let's say, that are the bad apples are still in the house. Now, the bulk of the people who are not us, who are not accountants and all of that, still continue to lose the value in their pensions and everything else. What do we say to them? Because clearly this profession is also part of our bigger society. How do we convince them that even though the majority of us are not as bad, they must stick it out with us? Because I think there's that part, because whenever people now see accountants or they see audit reports, I read somewhere some of the analysts saying that they never even look at financial statements that are audited. They've got other sources of information. Now, those are well-informed people. They are not the ordinary citizen that has lost a pension fund and their value. Thanks.
Thanks, Kimi. There's two issues that are embedded in your question. The first one, we have to hold our members accountable, irrespective of who they are. Of course, the process takes longer, unfortunately, because if you're going to discipline somebody and there's a possibility that you're going to strike them off as members for some time or forever, they're going to come back at you. You need to make sure that, one, what you are accusing them of having done, they are responsible for doing that. So we've got to hold our members accountable. But at the same time, we've got to create opportunities for our members to be able to report these incidences early enough so that we can deal with them quick enough. Unfortunately, almost all the time, by the time we realize that something wrong was happening, that's when the mess is so big that it results in all of those losses. So we need to build that culture where reporting can happen earlier. Hopefully with NOCLA, it's going to resolve the clash of values in relation to confidentiality, professional behavior, as well as issues of integrity. Because most of our members, when they were faced with situations where they have to report, they would ask themselves a question, are they not overstepping the confidentiality issue? And then held back by the need to keep the confidence of the information that they've come across during the audit, they would not report. NOCLA provides better guidance to deal with that issue. And hopefully, with that dispensation in place, we should be able to deal with it. But there's one piece about people not using financial statements. There's an issue that they don't trust the financial statements, but also with the fourth industrial revolution and all of these other things, there is a change where in some countries already, credit gets extended on the basis of data that they have in relation to that organization as opposed to financial information. So there is also a need for the profession to redefine its purpose, to think about what skills and competencies it needs to develop now in order to be relevant in the future. And to that end, as SAICA, we've got a project called CA 2025, where we're beginning to grapple with those issues and address those future competencies.